Pain lag. Nick realized his body had developed a glitch. It started with the small things. On Monday, while he was dicing onions in the kitchen, the blade slipped and sliced a deep gash into his fingertip. Despite the heavy flow of blood, there was no pain. He simply applied a band-aid and carried on. It wasn't until 5 minutes later, while he was sitting on the sofa sipping water, that a sharp, searing sting suddenly flared in his finger, forcing a sharp cry from his lips. This lag began to stretch like a spreading plague. Minutes turned into hours. Nick had to become hypervigilant. He could no longer rely on his senses to tell him if he was currently being harmed. Eventually, the delay extended to a full 24 hours. One morning at 8 a.m., a sharp, localized throb bloomed across his face while he was washing up. He hurried to the mirror. A large, angry red welt had surfaced on his left cheek. He stared at his reflection, racking his brain until he remembered. That was the impact from yesterday morning, at exactly 8 a.m., when he had clumsily collided with the corner of a table. On a Sunday night, Nick woke from a heavy drunken stupor. His mind felt hollowed out by the alcohol, but his body felt, strangely enough, wonderful. It was an eerie sensation. There was no hangover headache, no muscle soreness. He felt light, as if his entire being were a tuft of cotton drifting in the air. Must have been some top-shelf stuff, he muttered to himself, padding barefoot toward the bathroom. He flicked on the light. The man in the mirror made him freeze. It could no longer be called a face. A massive chunk of his left cheek was missing, the edges jagged and raw, exposing a row of stark, white gums and teeth. Moving his gaze downward, he saw that his pajamas were completely saturated in a deep, blackish-purple crust. The worst was the abdomen. There was a hole the size of a fist, the edges charred and torn as if by a blunt instrument. Through the cavity, Nick could clearly see his own intestines feebly twitching and the dull, darkened hue of his internal organs. As he stared at the carnage, the fog of the blackout finally burned away. He remembered now. Last night, that pitch-black alleyway, the men he had run into. He remembered the muffled thud of a blade sinking into his gut, the vibration of a serrated edge sawing through his cheek. He remembered how, in his drunken state, he had actually smiled at his attackers because he truly hadn't felt a thing. He had walked home with injuries that should have killed him 3 times over, climbed into bed, and slept peacefully for nearly an entire day. Nick checked his watch. It was 11:59 p.m. He remembered the attack had happened at midnight. Nick sat on the edge of his bed, watching the reflection of the man who had already been reduced to a pile of scrap meat. He looked down at his watch. 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 55 seconds. 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 56 seconds. 4 seconds remained of the 24-hour window. The feeling of weightlessness was evaporating, replaced by a heavy, tidal wave of despair that had been delayed for a whole day. Nick closed his eyes. He knew that the moment the second hand hit 12, that day-old agony, a pain powerful enough to shred his soul 10,000 times over, would detonate within a single millisecond. 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds.